Right, in today's video we're going to use some acrylic paint and some water in the top right, and in the bottom right that is Floetrol, and we got some little clear mixing cups here as well. We're going to mix up a painting pouring medium, and we're going to decorate these lovely Aquacast coasters. Now, we've made those up in advance. If you haven't seen us use Aquacast before, why not check out our playlist and have a look at the videos. So here we go. I did this with each of the different colours of paint. So this is a clear plastic empty yogurt pot that I'm doing this into, and I just gave it a very good generous helping there of the white acrylic paint, pouring enough of the Floetrol in so that it just covers that paint. So we're trying to go for equal parts there of paint to Floetrol. Now mix it in really well. Now yes, you're going to introduce air when you do this, but there's a way of getting rid of the little air bubbles, because obviously you don't want that in your finished piece, because then when it dries and cures you'll have little pot marks or divots where the bubbles were. So as you can see, that is way too thick, so I need to add some water, which is what I'm doing now. So just adding some water. Now I will say, you can see I'm wearing gloves. You don't have to wear gloves if you don't want to, but your hands will get messy. Now, because this is our channel and we're a bit partial to a bit of gold, let's see what happens if we add some gold glitter and some gold mica powder, which you will see coming up soon. Now, I mixed it in quite well, and yeah, it's got lost really within that. I think maybe if I use the Floetrol mixed with water, so just thin it right down, and add glitter, because the Floetrol actually, when it dries clear. So that might have more of the effect that I was trying to achieve perhaps. Now, hands up here, I am very rusty at paint pouring techniques. I used to do a lot of it, but I haven't done it for a good couple of years or so, I don't think, not properly. So, and never with Floetrol. I've always used PVA glue and PVA glue and water as my pouring medium that I add to paint. But there we go. So I was happy with the white and the mica and the glitter mix, so I then went on and I did the same with all the other colours, which is what you can see here. Now, bits of this video have been sped up because it's quite a bit longer than our usual ones. It's almost double the length of time. So I do hope that you're nice and comfortable when you're watching this, and that you've got a lovely cuppa. Mine personally at the moment, whilst I'm editing this, nice big mug of tea. Anyway, moving on, Laura, because I'm digressing here. As I said, sped up this bit of this section of the video because it's repetition and I don't want to bore you, but you can see we've got the white, golden mica and glitter mix. We've got a beautiful pale pinky colour, I want to say, a lovely pale blue, a red, but it's not a very deep red, and this lovely like sort of mint greenish white. Thoroughly mixed them all. Now I did make up one other colour, which was navy blue, which you're not going to see me mix up, but I did mix it up because it just needed something to give it a bit of an edge. Now this is me adding in a little bit of water at a time, trying to get the right consistency so that the paint, when it's poured onto this lovely Aquacast coaster that I've made in advance, true Blue Peter style, if you ever watched that might not mean a lot to other people. Here's one I made earlier, as it were, and I'm just adding the different colours of the paint direct on to the surface of the coaster. Now, yeah, as I said, I'm very rusty at this. I used to do a lot more of it. I was a lot more au fait with the colour palettes and the combinations of colours that will work. There's that darker blue that I said I mixed up but didn't show you. And you know, you could stop at that and that would look lovely, and you could then move on and do your next one or another 3 depending on how many you were making. But yeah, I was trying to remain confident whilst I was doing this, but I didn't have... There was just something not quite right about it, but I carried on. So around the edges, what you do is you fill in the blank bits where you haven't currently got any paint. And then I used just an ordinary drinking straw, and I blew the white gold mica mix a little bit over and into the centre part of where I put all those other lovely colours, as you can see me doing there. Then I turned the coaster around and did exactly the same the other side. Now you can just put lines of white and cover it with the white whilst you're blowing it like that colour over all the other colours. Now it didn't colour it enough for me, but I thought, you know, come on, we'll keep going. So then this is me just literally blowing the colours out from the centre. Now there's not enough colours, there's not enough of the colour on there to have the kind of wow impact that I wanted it to. Plus there were no cells. Floetrol, flood Floetrol, is supposed to create lots of lovely cells of paint. Now it just wasn't doing it for me. I mean, some people, yeah, they might like this might be, you know, very subtle, might be the effect they were looking for, but it certainly wasn't the effect I was looking for, although it is rather lovely. So I made the big decision. Now some people might think this is a bit drastic. I decided to scrape it all off. Now I don't like wasting things, and I don't like wasting paint, so I scraped it off into this other little clear yogurt pot, and I put it to one side because I thought, okay, we're going to try a different technique, and I might need this to help with pouring the paint over the surface of another coaster. So this is me trying again. We're going to do a different technique this time, where we're just almost layering up the different colours of paint, one on top of the other. Now some of the pigment in the paint is heavier than others. White is usually the heaviest, so they might drop down through the other colours. It depends on the consistency of your paint pour mix that you've got, and, you know, I suppose how much of the colour you actually put on to each of the layers, so how deep your layers are. But as you can see, I'm just doing a repetition of colours, trying not to put the red directly on top of the darker blue, because we don't want brown, and we also don't want a muddy mess either. So have fun with it. You can do what I'm doing here, which is in little patterns. No rhyme or reason for that, just for the giggles of it. So what we're going to do is, this is a clean coaster, put it down like that over the top, and then turn upside down. There we go. So you've got a little capsule full of layers of paint, and now they are all currently making their way down to from the bottom of that cup down to the surface of the coaster, and then you lift it up. Can you see? Can you see how they've mixed? The colours have mixed, and right in the centre there you should be able to see a sort of the paley pinky purple colour, or mauve, or whatever colour you want to call it. Few little cells popping up here and there in that, and also in the red along the bottom with the blue. Now we've got some bubbles. You can either sit and you can pop all of them with a little cocktail stick if you wish. Now I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this technique where I can't remember for the life of me the technique that it is, but took a little kebab skewer in and just drew some little squiggly lines in between it all. And look at that. And now this is manipulating the coaster. So you've just picked it up and you're just tipping it from side to side, manoeuvring the paint across the surface of the coaster. Now, there is nothing stopping you from using resin instead. So you could get different colours of resin, or you could make up different colours of resin using alcohol inks or pigments, resin pigments, totally up to you what you use. And you could create exactly the same effect. Up to you what you decide to do. But I thought I'd have a go and use the paints, because as I said, I haven't done this for a long time and I'm rather rusty at it. So this is me just having a little practice to see, can I still do it, basically? Is it going to give me the effect I want? And so on. So what I'm doing here at the sides, I've just taken a little stir stick and I'm just clearing up the excess paint from underneath. So you're going to get some paint that goes over the sides of the coaster, and you don't want a lot of that appearing on the underside of that coaster. So you just use a little stir stick, go around the edges on the underside, and then just make sure that all your sides of your coaster are also coated with a little thin coating of paint. There we go. Now, still got some bubbles. So at this point I've got a long necked lighter, as you can see here, and I'm just applying. Now I'm not touching the paint with that flame. I'm just holding it as close as I can over the top of the paint that we've got on there, and it encourages all the little bubbles that are there to pop. It also applies some heat to the paint, doesn't burn it. Take care not to burn the paint, because if you burn it, you'll have to scrape it and start again. It encourages the cells to come up, and the cells are formed by the paint itself, and you get more cells depending on what brand of paint that you use. If you use Amsterdam branded paint or Liquid-X, is it Liquid-X? Gosh, I can't even remember the names of the brands of paints. My God, I'm really bad. Those two in particular, mixed with Floetrol, bring out a lot of cells. So obviously it depends on the type of look that you're wanting. Now, it wasn't bringing up enough cells for me, so you can probably see there a bit of a glow. That is a blowtorch. It's a small one. It's not a massive, one that they use. It's a small one, but again, go careful. It is imperative the flame does not come into contact with the paint. But hopefully you can see that just in the centre there, you've got some little blue cells coming up through into where that pale sort of pinky mauvey colour is. And they're just gradually appearing. Now, I didn't want a lot of cells. I just wanted a few, and I just wanted to make sure that no little air pockets were there. Now you can see little bits of glitter as well. It's quite a nice effect. Looks very sort of like galaxy, or maybe the surface of a planet. Now, to be honest with you, most of the time never know when to stop with doing these kinds of things. And all I'm doing here is I decided I wanted to soften up some of the harder lines. So I went in with the end of a kebab skewer. You could go in with a cocktail stick if you wanted. And I've got some of the red because there wasn't enough red as well. So I'm trying to make the lines a little bit softer. It may not appear like that, but I am trying to make them a little bit softer. But also a little bit more of coordination and a bit more of a presence of that red, which is what I'm trying to do here. So it's almost sort of creating like little veins like you would see perhaps on some marble. This would be some very exotic marble. I've never seen it where it's pink, blue and red and, yeah. I've never seen marble quite this colour. But that's not to say it doesn't exist somewhere in the world, but there you go. So again, just going in, doing some little dots with the blue paint on the end of that little wooden skewer stick that I've got, and then running my edge of the skewer stick just through it, just through the surface. Now some of this colour will sink through to the bottom and you won't see it. Some of it will stay evident and noticeable on the surface. Now this is the other one. So do you remember the one we did to start with where I didn't like it, I scraped it? I have mixed up what we scraped off, poured it back over to the surface, layered up another little cup or little mixing cup full of the lovely colours of paints, and I'm doing a different technique. Now this is a tree ring pour, which I think in the end I decided to do a bit of travelling with it. But can you see it's tree ring because when you pour it, it comes out and there's lots and lots of circles, round circles, like you would count the rings on the inside of a tree that have been chopped down and so on, if you've ever done that. But look at that. So you can see there's a lot more paint on this one because it's escaping over the sides. Now I'm going in again with the kebab skewer, doing some squiggles and things. Now I love that, and if I could have left it like that I would have done, but there is too much paint on this coaster. So again, I've picked it up, manipulating it from side to side, just tilting it slightly. And you can see it's moving. And as it moves, it stretches out the layers of paint and your design and colour. And once you're happy with what you've got, with your composition, just stop. Pop it back down like I'm doing there. Repeat the process where you go around and you check that all your sides are covered and that you've got nothing dripping over the sides. Just clearing it up using that little stir stick there to do that. There we go. And if you're happy with that, you just make sure you've got no little bubbles by applying a little bit of heat, whether you use a long-necked lighter, not long-nosed lighter, or the torch. Totally up to you how you do that. But again, make sure that you do not heat up the paint too much, or that the flame that you use comes in contact with the paint, because then you have to scrape it and start again. So I've applied the heat. Can you see that with all those cells there? I quite like that. Quite like that. And then there's the other one. Now with this leftovers of paint, I did scrape that up and then put that again into a separate little used yogurt pot, or clean used yogurt pot, and just kept it to use as my base. Now I've then got another coaster. I actually had 4 of them. I've layered up the little pot there again with all the different colours. Look how beautiful that is. By the way, if you've joined us today, thank you for joining us. Hope you're enjoying this video. This is a lot longer than our regular videos. Our usual videos are no more than about 15 minutes in length, but we haven't done this for a long while, and I wanted to show you all the technique and everything that we did really to try and create things. So thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, why not subscribe to the channel? We don't normally do paint pouring techniques, I have to say, but we might be something that we introduce a lot more of in the future. We will still be doing resin, as in epoxy resin, UV resin and eco resin. We have used some eco resin, it's Aquacast, to make the coasters. If you need information on how you make things using Aquacast, then check out our previous videos and you'll be able to see us using Aquacast, talk about how we mix it, what the mixing ratio is, the brand we use, which is Aquacast. It's by Elichem, and it's very easy to use. So there we go. All I've done is filled in the little edges where there wasn't any paint with some of the leftovers from before. And I'm now picked it up and I'm manipulating the paint. I am stretching out that pattern and it's going over the edges, over the sides of the coasters. You want it to go over the sides to cover up the coaster, the edges. You do not want it to go underneath. It will go underneath a little bit, but you clean that up as you've seen in the process before with the previous one, using the wooden stir stick to do that. And then you apply the heat, and just to get rid of any little bubbles that might be hiding in the paint, because you've obviously, unfortunately, you've introduced air pockets and little bubbles, and you don't want them suddenly coming up to the surface whilst this is drying, because they will leave little holes, and that's not what you want. A bit like resin, you don't want that happening in resin, you don't want that happening when you're using an acrylic paint pouring technique either. And you apply heat much in the same as you would apply isopropyl alcohol, or a bit of heat perhaps with resin. Now there's nothing stopping you from using resin to create this technique. You just mix up resin. Use a slightly thicker than usual resin, I would say, probably, or mix up the different colours you want to use, and leave it for about, obviously check the working time with the resin you're using, or leave it for a good sort of 10 minutes, and then layer up your colours, and then do the paint pouring techniques that you've seen me use in here. Here we go. So, and you will get a similar effect. It is something that we need to try, as I say. Not tried that yet with resin, but we'll be trying it at some point in the near future, probably. So just applying the heat now, as you can see. Can you see all those lovely little cells coming up to the surface? There we go. And I mean, I quite like that. Some people don't like it. I have to say, the bit down there on the right hand side to the bottom, towards the bottom, a little bit like an ocean perhaps. with the blues and the whites. Again, I'm doing exactly what I've done before. I'm trying to introduce some more statement pieces of colour using the existing colours that we've got. Maybe trying to include it, you know, get it, I suppose, manipulating the paint that's already there, maybe adding a bit in, doing some swirls, just some light swirls, and maybe just sort of making some of the lines not quite so harsh, maybe making some bit more detailed, a bit more sharp. Always go with little dots and then join them together like you saw me doing just there with the blue, and then just doing this sort of swirl pattern, and it mixes and combines the colours quite nicely. There we go. And obviously anywhere where you think that needs just a little something extra, you can always go in with it and do that like I'm doing here. And don't forget, this is only paint. If you don't like the result you've got, you can pick this up, scrape it off into a separate little pot, keep the paint, because you can then use that as your base, like you've seen me do with the tree ring pours and things, you know, on the previous coaster. And you can use that as your base or bits to fill in around the edges before you start manipulating the coaster. Now, I had some made up paints left over and I didn't know when I was going to use them again. So I thought, I know, we'll make some skins. Now, they are called skins. They're made from your leftover acrylic paint pour and paint pouring medium mix. So all I did literally was layer up the remaining paint. I started off putting it into this little mixing cup you can see there, and that mould is actually the mould I used to make the Aquacast coasters. Now, you don't have to use Aquacast. You can use little wooden coasters. You know, you can buy them through Amazon. I think is probably the best place to start looking for those. Or if you've got a really good local hobby craft or hobby shop, then try them, see if they've got them. And you can just, you know, you can decorate them. But I wanted to have a go at using the Aquacast to make the coasters, which is what I did. So I used them, I made it up. It is, as I said, Aquacast is a powder and polymer mix of an eco resin. It's made by Acrylic. You mix in the water, you do the mixing ratio as per the manufacturer's instructions, which are usually on the packet or on their website, and you mix it up and get nice and smooth, pour it into your mold, and literally an hour to an hour and a half later you've got your cured piece, which is what is so great about these eco resins. Right, so all I've done is the bits of leftover paint that I'd scraped off before on the ones that I didn't like, I've poured into the base of the mold. And I'm literally just now going to pour in the layers of paint that I've put into that lovely little mixing cup, which is what you're going to see any moment now. But in the meantime, you can just see how that's spreading out. Here we go. We're going to pour it in. There we go. So as I said, sped up because, you know, it's not something that you haven't seen me do already on the coasters themselves. So I actually had enough to make 4. So I've just done a similar thing, just a little shot there of the coasters as well, whilst they're drying off. Look at them. They are beautiful. Everyone unique as well. Now, these are the dried coasters. Now, I left them for a good 2 days to completely dry out. There is some bits of paint underneath, and you can just paint one solid colour underneath. You could back them with some self-adhesive cork, or you could give them a bit of a sand and then put some of these nice little sticky plastic feet underneath. Now, I thought they still needed a little something, so I've gone in with one of these lovely little silver deco colour pens. As I said, this is a time lapse of me doing it, and all I'm doing is actually using a dotting tool there, going at the speed of light almost to do this. I did take my time doing it, and I'm going in applying some little dots and some little lines. Can you see it there? Hopefully you can see it. This is an extreme close-up for you. But I was really quite pleased with this, considering it's been a long time since I've done any paint pouring techniques. Long time. Might not be to everybody's taste. This might not be your kind of video. As I say, we haven't done this in a long time. But now, out in the garden, hence the change of light, scenery and so on, Wayne is now spraying with clear polyurethane varnish over the surface of the coasters, and that was to seal them. You have to do that. Now you can use a paint on varnish if you want, but I prefer to use a spray on. Now you can see we've got some slightly white edges to this, but that's okay. Happy with that. We did 2 coats of the polyurethane varnish. Make sure that it dries thoroughly in between each one, and then another 24 hours later I'm doing just a top coat of resin. I'm using the Let's Resin UV resin. Again, this is just purely for quickness. So it was finished within that day, or the part of the day that and the time that I had during this particular day. I'm being quite generous with it. It's quite thick. Obviously, the thickness will depend on the brand you use. And just letting it find its way across the surface. And then using a wooden stir stick, just smoothing it out so we haven't got any gaps. And then it's always best to get down to the same level. Now don't go up really close, obviously we've zoomed in a lot so you can see what's going on, but get down to the same eyeline level as the UV resin and check, have a look. Is it completely smooth over the surface? Have you got any little areas where for whatever reason the UV resin hasn't coated it? If you find anything like that, then squidge a little bit more of the resin on, a bit like I'm doing here, because sometimes it does that. Sometimes for whatever reason there might be something still left that's not been sealed on the surface of the coaster, and it's preventing the resin from staying there on the surface of it. And then once you're happy, obviously go out to the edges with the resin as well. Make sure it's all out to the edges, which is actually what I'm doing now, and just topping up a tiny bit more here and there. And then once you're completely happy with it, obviously you need to cure it. Now I am applying a little bit of heat with that long neck lighter just to the surface, because I have found that Let's Resin UV resin for some reason has a few little bubbles, micro bubbles. Applied a little bit of UV light with the torch, and then I put it over our main UV lamp, or under our main UV lamp, for 5 minutes. Now these were the skins, and basically all we do now is, those were the skins of acrylic paint that I poured into the mould. I left them in there for a good 3 days. They took a long time to dry out completely. So a good 3 days, just peeled them out, obviously cleaned the mould out, peeled them out, and you get this, it's a skin, slightly stretchy skin. Now go careful with it because it is a little bit fragile. And then all I'm doing here is I'm doing my best to make some cabochons, or I should say some cabochon, I want to say covers for some reason, using clear UV resin. Now mine were not crystal clear, they've got tiny little micro bubbles in them. So in future, if we did this again, I would use regular epoxy resin and just babysit it for those little bubbles, as you can see there. So not very happy with myself with that. But the idea is that you would then stick these down on the skin of the, can you see that? Look at that. Now if that was completely crystal clear, it would magnify the pattern even more. Attach those to your paint skin, acrylic paint skin, and you can do it using super glue, or you can do it using UV resin like I've done here. I would then go in and trim all this up around the edges, and then pop some UV resin over the back as well, just to completely seal it. And once you're really happy with it, you then put your pendant bail or an eye hook in the top, attach some cord, and you've got a lovely necklace. So here's the finishing shots. I've only showing you the coasters. I hope you've enjoyed this video, a little bit different from the norm perhaps. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thank you if you joined us in the live chat for the premiere, and we'll see you again on Friday at 5 o'clock UK time. Take care everyone, have a good week. Bye bye.